Hello. It's a long morning. So today we're going to talk about AI and public goods, and I'm your moderator today, Zoe, and I'm now leading a digital identity research lab with Moda, and I previously worked on RPGF mechanism designing, and that is related to public goods. So I think that's what makes me here moderating this session for you, and before this morning, like Vitalik talked about the open source and Devansh talking about deep funding, and now we're picking up the threads talking about AI and public goods. So I would like to introduce like two of our panelists here. Devansh, I think we kind of like hear a lot from you, like from earlier keynote speech. So Tammy, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, good morning. I'm Tammy, the founder of Numbers Protocol. Nice to meet everybody here.
Okay. Is there any recent activity you want to share from Numbers Protocol to the audience?
Sorry.
The workshop.
Yeah, so I think we actively having a lot of information, a lot of activities like a workshop and also to engage with the community and promote the provenance. And I will talk more about the provenance of content and in the later conversations.
Yeah. So Tammy, your work rooted deep in journalism, and you're providing a tool that like help the journalism, like you provide a blockchain for them. So what do you think that public goods in your domain is like? Are you building public goods?
Yeah, so I think so before I start answering the question, I think just a few background for the journalism project that we have worked with. So previously, for the audience who are not very familiar with how we use the blockchain to support the journalism, and previously we leveraged the blockchain technology and also Web3 technology to support the journalists in States and also in Taiwan to create the provenance of the digital content and also help them to monetize their content better to have a global network. And the next phase will be leveraging what we're going to talk today to create the AI models. So I think the reason why we are working on this and also related to your question is I think in our domain, the journalism and the reliable information and the graph which connect all the dots. So that's how we define the public good, because only if we may have a good information graph where everybody can rely on, and then we can have a resilient communication. We know how to verify the information. So when you talk to me and when we are having the information, and then we know what to trust, and even if we don't trust, and then we know how to track and how to verify the information. So that's kind of the foundation of our everyday life. So before we talk about blockchain, before we talk about Web3, because before we talk about all these technologies, so the key is the communication of our society. So that's how we define, the information network, a reliable information network, and also the truth. And that's how we define as a public good in this domain.
Yep, thank you. So Devansh, do you want to share the story about the start of deep funding?
Yeah, I think that's like a good story time, kind of thing. And my biggest advice to people is to just tweet every day, like be active on Twitter and share what you're building. Kind of the archetype of a coder who just goes and builds his own thing and then he comes out and it's an amazing thing he's built and everyone recognizes it. That's not how things work. While building it, you have to keep sharing your journey. So while I was working on Voice Deck, kind of one of the things we're interested in is AI quantification of impact, that how do we have AI quantify how much impact has been made. So I just tweeted this out and Vitalik saw this tweet and messaged me saying, hey, I've been thinking of something similar. And he kind of lays out the entire deep funding mechanism. And so that's how deep funding became a kind of offshoot of VoiceDeck, that deep funding is a smart way of quantifying impact. And that's how it started. Like, after I tweeted about it and then 5 days of conversation, and then he's like, okay. And Vitalik said, okay, we've reached the end of our theorizing. Do you want to like now just go ahead and do a pilot with it?
Yeah. So based on your previous work in journalism, like you're previously a journalist and your current work at Ethereum Foundation, do you think, and now currently this deep funding project, do you think that can benefit other open source community or other ecosystem as well, not just EF?
Right, so I think the idea of like dependency graphs lends itself well to open source software because it's so easy to figure out what are your package dependencies. So kind of to give an example, like something in companies, like the reason companies always outcompete networks is that they can integrate their cost center and a profit center. So if I take something like Twitter, Twitter has an ad division, which is earning profit, and they have something like community notes, which is a cost center. It's not earning profit. But because they have an executive, they can take money from the ad division and give it to community notes to make a better product. But in open source software, we do not have this integration between cost center and profit center. If Aave is earning money, they are a profit center. If Solidity is creating the smart contracts which Aave depends on, they are a cost center, but there's no easy way for Aave to give money to Solidity, even though it's a dependency of theirs. So I think deep funding can be a way to integrate your profit centers and your cost centers so that we can actually start competing with corporates and some of the centralized corporations that are currently kicking our ass.
Yes. So I think previous panel, we talked about how hard MPO or open source project get funded. And I think with Deep Graph, like there are a lot of open source repo on GitHub. So if we can figure out how heavy the dependency on with those repos, I think that can be really beneficial for those developers online. And let's get more specific right now. So if we want AI to be reliably built and fund those projects, I think we don't want to reinforce the current power or the current hype. And what infrastructure do we want to build and fund, and what's missing in the current space? So Tammy, do you think the provenance can become a critical input of AI, not just in media domain?
Yeah, I think that that's exactly true. So I think currently, so when you see a piece of content, a piece of information online, and everybody rely on the declaration, right? So just like if you put an image or you record a video and then you may claim, hey, this is created by me and this is owned by me and then this has been created at this time and then so on. And I think in the future, so like when AI is going to support us in a lot of domains, and it will be actually very terrible if AI cannot tell the story behind and it cannot have the reliable information. So if you imagine the reliable information the reliable content as a node of the big network, and also the source of it or the conceptual nodes as the edge to point back to the origin of the content, and then it start creating a big graph where you can rely on. And I think that kind of network is going to be very important for building the AI in the future. So that kind of network and the big information graph where you can verify and then you can track and age of it and the nodes of it, and you know who runs it, and it's transparent, and that's going to be a very important infrastructure in building the future AI.
Yeah, thank you. I think information graph is definitely important in the journalism world because the truth, is one connected to another, right? So, Devansh, I think the deep funding mechanism, while I'm doing my homework for this panel, I heard that there are 3 metrics you're using to evaluate all the repos and how you give those scores, and there are 3 components working together. One is the jury, human, and one is the model, and one is which one is the other?
And the other is the graph itself.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, you have 3 components. You have the graph, which people need to train, which people need to give answers for. That this is the graph of 15,000 repos. Now you have to give numbers to it. The second is people who are building the models, giving the numbers. And the third is the jury. And the instructions we give the jury is to vote on specificity, that is this specific to Ethereum, or is it is it a dependency which everyone uses? Additionality, that is this repo already well funded, or is it something which can actually use the money well? And the third is replaceability, that if this package dependency didn't exist, how much time would you have to spend on it? And talking to your earlier question about building resilient infrastructure for AI, I think the future which I want to see for AI is where AI is similar to a fruit seller, where if I don't like a fruit seller or he's charging extra money, I just go to the next fruit seller who's more competitive and I can get it. So in the deep funding case, if people have submitted an AI model, but someone submits a better AI model, then we take the weights of the better AI model, and better is defined as aligning with the jury more, aligning with the humans more, which the jury is submitting. So that's the world I want to see, where today this AI is on top, but then tomorrow someone submits a better model and then that AI comes on top and then the weights change.
Yep, so I think in this case, I would think the model is part of the public goods, right? So how do you evaluate that? So do we want to govern that? And how do we fund them in the future? And Tammy, for you, I would like to ask that if there's a model embedded in your infographic system, what is your imagination or in your roadmap, what could that be?
Yeah, so before answering that question, I also want to respond to your previous comment that the information graph is very important to the journalism, and that's exactly true. But also I would like to add that it's actually affect all of us. So take the reasonably image, the hype, for example, if your lifelong efforts can be very easily stolen, and then you don't have the motivation to work anymore, because if you keep creating the creative work, and that could very easily be learned by the AI, and then in the end, then people will not have the motivation to keep creating, and then it means that AI will not have the new data. So I think it is in the future network, what we imagine is that the information network is just the first step, because it provides the links to the content and its origin, and also the history of it. So once we have that, and we will be able to have the AI to properly credit the information source. And so it's not just about the misinformation problem, a fake news problem. It's not just like that, but it's related to all of us. When we are the creativity provider, when we are the information provider, can AI in this network working in the way that it will credit the information source, probably not just providing the information saying that, hey, this information is provided by Reuters, this information is provided by another journalist, but also working in this network and can probably properly reward the people who or behind this piece of content, and then once the people are the human are also rewarded by providing quality and also the reliable information and the content, and then it will help AI to learn better and knowing more about the story behind, and then that will create a smarter and also a more responsible AI future. I think.
Yep, thank you. Devansh, do you want to add anything to it?
Yep.
Model as public goods?
Yeah, and like the AI models and how we fund them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like by and large, we rely on the wisdom of the crowds for getting AI models. I think the idea is that like one person sitting in his mother's basement can like make an amazing model, which like even outcompetes companies. And we've certainly seen that with DeepSeek, which kind of operating on a shoestring budget has made something which has even taken like the Western world by storm, and OpenAI and others have become scared. So I think so that's one part of it, that you try to keep the competition open for anyone in the world to submit a model. And then the second question becomes, how do you give prizes to people who are submitting good models so that it actually becomes worth their time? And kind of like, so Vitalik has made the scoring script for deep funding. Like he coded it up himself. Like within 2 weeks, he just like made this entire Python script by himself. And basically what it does is that it combines the best out of various models to create a mother AI. So assume that you submit a very original model. Like Zoe submits a very original model. So Vitalik's script will say that 20% of the mother AI is from Zoe's model. 10% is from Tammy's AI and 5% is from Devanch's AI. So the eventual leaderboard is how much are you contributing to the mother AI. And we can then give money through that as well. That Zoe is contributing 20% to the mother AI. So she gets 20% of whatever we want to give the model builders. So it becomes a very clear way to fund those who are making original and good models.
Yes, so I think besides the model, the dependency graph is also playing a vital role here. But there is a controversial question I would like to ask, is that how do we have human jury, but how do we know that AI is not ignoring those messier but vital project repo out there? Like in the model, can we actually find them? Like how do we discover those messier projects?
Yeah, I think this is something which even Tammy can talk about, which is about biases. Like how do we kind of, when people are writing, how do we just not keep replicating biases? And I actually think AI is better over here, that if there's some unexplored repo, which none of us have heard about, like AI is still going to be neutral with respect to that repo. Whereas you and me are going to like be preferring like the well-known repos which we've heard about, and like ignore the ones that we've not heard about for the most part. So I think that's one good part of it, that AI does not discriminate based on reputation. AI models will look at like hard metrics and how much is used and other things like that. Like where the bias does enter the picture is the jurors. Ultimately, we want AI to be trying to predict human judgment, and human judgment itself has its flaws. So one of the flaws is like what I call the halo effect, that even, and we actually saw this in deep funding. So I'm going to give you like a cool story over here, which is that there's a repo called Web3.js, which has done a lot of good work for Ethereum in the past, but it's been overtaken by upstarts like Veeam or Ethers.js. They've taken over all the share which earlier Web3.js had. So the jurors actually gave a very high rating to Web3.js, saying Web3.js is great and it's like it's done good for the ecosystem. But like simultaneously, there was an EF investigation which found that no one is using Web3.js anymore. So I'm like looking at the data from jurors and I'm seeing high scores to Web3.js. I'm looking at the report from the EF, which is saying no one is using Web3.js anymore. And I'm like, how do these two things map together? So Web3.js is now discontinued, and this was the backstory to it. So there is a problem with human judgment over here, and AI can help mitigate it, but these are inherent problems with human judgment.
Yes, so talking about this, I wonder that whether the verifiable content and the provenance metadata can be part of the dependency graph or your future, like, more evolved infographic in the future.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like in the recent days, it almost like every day, and then you have the new AI tools, the new AI features. So everything is changing very fast. So I think in the coming future, the way how we provide the content. So like previously, I was talking about the content and then also the information graph, and there are provenance of the content in this graph where you can rely on. So I think at the beginning, so we probably will think about that content is maybe just an image, a video, a post, or a document. But I think in the coming future, it may be slightly different because the way how you provide content, your content. So just like it could be that the journalists, so they are the content source, and all of them build their own AIs to provide the information. So in that way, it's not like connecting the content and the content verifying the provenance of each file, but more like connect the AIs and the AIs, and then they are all part of this big graph, and then they provide the knowledge to the bigger AI. So in that case, I think the role of provenance remains the same because it tells you like how this AI is generated and what type of data content has it already consumed, and then who is in charge of this AI, and then and so on. So only when like each small AI are all responsible, and then the information they provide is verifiable, and then eventually you could form a bigger network, and we can call it the information network or like information AI network.
Yep. So this graph, we're talking about mostly about content and media, right? So Devansh, do you think the dependency graph will in the future have the domain-specific dependency graph? Because now it represents, it's growing from the core Ethereum repo. But do we want, as this ecosystem will get bigger and bigger in the future, and that will be more harder to evaluate whether that's public goods, how big is the impact in the ecosystem. Do you think we need like a domain-specific graph in the future?
I think it's a question of like where, like, so I think we see two problems over here. One is the credit assignment problem, that for Ethereum, how much credit belongs to this repo versus another.
Yeah.
And the second part is like the funding loop, that where is the money going to come from, which is going to be given to this graph. So I think like the domain specificity will come in once we have the funding loop. So if there's something like IPFS, it's a decentralized file sharing network. They have money coming in from Filecoin. So if Filecoin wants to reward the IPFS dependency graph, then it makes sense to create one separately for IPFS. For Ethereum, we have like fees coming in or something else, then it makes sense to create like the Ethereum dependency graph. So all deep funding is actually doing is solving the credit assignment problem. Like we are figuring out how much credit belongs to A versus B, but that's only one part, and the larger part is like where is the money coming from, which is then going to be divided according to credit. And I think that's what I also find cool about numbers protocol, that kind of the graph work of like knowledge, we can eventually then apply the deep funding mechanism to even like the knowledge being produced by people. So things like citations and things like what you're working on and you're linking back, all of that, it can be applied to other domains there too.
Yeah, I think that concludes this topic a little bit. So next, I want to talk about some risks, because if you're bringing AI into an ecosystem, there must be bias and risks and responsibilities we need to talk about. So since we're using models to allocate funding and helping human make the prediction and even govern future DAOs. So do you think the model can be biased to a point that they are somehow not only, but incentivizing those projects are doing private goods, but rather than public goods? Yep, the model bias.
Yeah. So I think it's good to have many models for this reason. Like initially, like my thinking initially was we will create this one model and we will feed it good data, and this model can tell us all the answers. And that's exactly what like Vitalik pushed back against, and that's how he opened up my mind that we don't want just like one AI overlord who we all hope for his beneficence and his generosity of the AI. Like we instead want many AI models, and each of those AI models are competing, and then we have a selection process to choose the best AI model. So I think that's like a much safer future where we have competition and we don't just have kind of a lock into one AI model.
Yeah, that's good. So you're leveraging like multiple models to balance this ecosystem. So tell me, in your ecosystem, I think I saw on your GitHub repo that a lot of repos are public, and there are some forks as well. And how do you maintain this provenance system like more like in an inclusive way and more transparent in your own ecosystem?
Yeah, I think so. Having a little bit more blockchain record would probably the first step, and that's also what we do at Numbers Protocol. But I think so. This is actually referring to our experience in the last 6 years while building Numbers Protocol. I think this is actually a very complicated topic because it's actually related to how the trust that you build. So if something is completely transparent, do you just 100% trust it? So I mean, let's say, for example, like if a politician like claim that so everything, so all the works is on trend. So I think so. Some politician in Taiwan is already trying to do that, like creating the blockchain record and then putting everything on trend. So and then in that case, do you believe them already just by having everything transparent? So I think that's a very good first step. But eventually, so I think we kind of like as a member of the community, we need to have a kind of just like keep growing the system and then providing the incentives to people. So that's why I think the funding program is very good so even though there could be bias at the beginning, but I think eventually if we could make sure the incentives and all the fundings are towarding the right direction to encourage people to put more efforts on the public good instead of the private good, and then put more efforts on really reliable information instead of the not reliable information or the private information. And then in that case, I think we have a better opportunity, but not guaranteed, but just a better opportunity to build a more reliable and transparent AI future.
Yep, thank you. I think to wrap up this panel, we talk about the mechanism, the risks, and the responsibilities. And then next, I think we want to talk about some call to actions to the audience. So one thing I would like to ask first that how can we become a jury? Or is that selected at the moment?
Yeah, you can apply to become a juror. Kind of what you need is like familiarity with the core Ethereum repos and what its key dependencies are. So if you have that familiarity, go to deepfunding.org and there's a link called Become a Juror. So you can click on that and apply, and we review applications and add you to the juror pool. So that's kind of on the jury side. And if you're an AI or ML model builder, like you don't need any of our permission, you can just go submit a model And if it aligns well with the jury tags, then you will be kind of rewarded and given glory as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Tammy?
Yeah, so I think for the call to action, I think so this year and then probably starting from last year, I think there are actually a lot of provenance related to activities on the internet. It may not all related to the blockchain. For example, like there is a very big framework called C2PA, and it's already on LinkedIn, and then I think it will be soon on Meta and some other social platforms as well. So I think the one thing I would like to encourage everybody to try is that, so if you are seeing the content online, and then maybe it's interesting to just verify its origin and before you have any feeling or emotion or even the decision. And I think that would be very interesting. And also at Numbers Protocol, so we launched the Numbers Protocol about 4 years ago, and of course, 4 years ago, AI was not yet like having a significant impact in our daily life, but now it's completely different. So like this year, we're also going to have like an update of everything we have, including the GitHub repository, the website, and then to build an environment where everybody can more easily to be involved in this movement. Eventually, I think people are still the most important and the most crucial part in the AI future.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we have still like 5 to 10 minutes left. I would like to open the floor to the audience. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? Whether it's about Numbers Protocol or deep funding? Nope. Yes? Okay, then I think we're going to wrap this up earlier, and then you guys go to get some delicious lunch, Taiwanese lunch in the hall. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks again to all our amazing speakers. Let's wrap it up right now. Don't forget to come back at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. We have talk from